Hello, welcome back to Chat About It, Don't Shout About It with me, Rachel, the Queen of the Woke. As crowned by one of my haters, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you to everyone who has joined me already. I couldn't do it without you. So I'm here because the consolidation ratings for Empire of Death have finally dropped and they're absolutely abysmal. 3.69. It is coming in the fourth highest episode. And yes, they will probably try and shill off of that as the fourth highest rated episode of this series, but it didn't score above 4.0. And I predicted that it wouldn't, and I expect thousands of you also predicted that as well. So it is coming in at fourth. The highest rated episode was 73 yards, then The Space Babies, then Devil's Called, and then The Empire of Death. Now, I have to say something. Doctor Who was getting this great big build up. This was going to be the Americanization of Doctor Who. They were really promoting it. They were really selling it and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And this series has essentially gone down like a lead balloon. It really has dropped. People have not been impressed with it. There are people that like it. Now, remember, if you do actually like it, that is absolutely fine. And if you don't like it, that is also absolutely fine. It's just this is one of my favorite TV shows. And now I'm starting to think, what is the future of this show actually going to be? Because this is worrying some. So I did take a look at the Barb to see where it was on the Barb, and I couldn't actually see where it was on the chart at first. I thought it hadn't scored, but it has. It has. So it didn't score in the orange bar chart, as you can see at the top there. A lot of football scored. And by the way, I don't even think, if I've got this correct, that England were playing at the time of Empire of Death. I don't know. I can't remember. But it did come in at 18th place on the Barb figures. Now, I'm sure that the powers at B up above us of keeping a very close eye on these figures because, we've had these news readings and these reports saying, oh, yes, well, it's not all about the ratings, but we'll get to those later. Let's have a quick look at the Nielsen figures. Oh, what do you know? Doctor Who is not even hitting the top 10 on the Nielsen figures, and that is for the week of May 20th to the May 26th. The Radio Times Shill website decided to average out the figures a little while ago for this current series of Doctor Who to 4 million, which I knew was a load of rubbish, and I have dyscalculia, so that's saying something. If I can work that out, surely they can too. So I calculated the total average in total for this season, 3.70. Where are all these new viewers that they were supposed to be bringing in? For everyone that left, we were supposed to get 5 more coming in. That was the whole idea, according to Jinx Monsoon. And, well, just for funsies, I took a look at Sylvester McCoy to see what he averaged. As you can see, there are 4 stories up above there. Now, you may think, well, that's not fair to compare it to that, but the news flash is on that, in that regards, is that those are actually already averaged figures because in the old style classic, there was part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and sometimes 3-part episodes and 2-part episodes, depending on what they were writing. So Battlefield was a 4-part episode, Ghostlight was a 3-part, Curse of Fenwick was 4, and Survival was 3. So in total, 14 episodes. So that would have been more. And just for funsies, really, more than anything, the average total of the averages was 4.1. And I will say this again, Sylvester McCoy's last era was his lowest scoring era and probably one of the lowest ever in Doctor Who, I believe. This is what got the show cancelled last time, and Ncuti's era has been performing consistently worse than Sylvester McCoy's last era. It is unbelievable. And that was before streaming services and having it on at the cinema. So this is a recent article from the Radio Times a couple of days ago. I've taken some select bullet points, but it is linked below should you wish to read it. Doctor Who's ratings are a success for Russell T Davies in a way that is crucial to its future. Russell T Davies gets that as a fellow Doctor Who enthusiast who could pull apart and put back together history of Doctor who still gets that warmth in his eye when he recalls a Doctor Who memory from his own youth. Fair enough, we all do that. He commented on his push for younger viewers, saying the under 16s and the under 34 audience as well is massive. It's not doing that well in the ratings, but it's doing phenomenally well with the younger audience, and that's what we wanted. So a few weeks ago, he was just talking about the under 16s, but it's wasn't reaching the under 16s. Now I'm going to point you in the direction of the Sense Sphere, because the Sense Sphere has figures on those particular ratings for that age bracket. And also for this age bracket that he's talking about here, 16 to 34. When they realized that it wasn't going down with the under 16s because they're not really watching it, he then extended it to up to 34, 35. And that's ridiculous because those people were only a few years younger than me, and they will be old enough to remember, the majority of them will be old enough to remember when the 2005 series landed. And I'm old enough to remember it, so they definitely can. This season of Doctor Who premiered on iPlayer nearly 24 hours before broadcast, and episode 1 has already been viewed by nearly 6 million viewers and continues to grow. Now, that's ridiculous because, you go back to Jodie's first ever episode and it's what 9, 10 million, whatever it was ridiculously high. Now, that was Intrigue, and that wasn't all that long ago if you actually think about it. Doctor Who remains one of the most watched programmes on BBC iPlayer and is the BBC's top drama for under 35s this year, making it one of the biggest programmes for the demographic across all streamers and broadcasters. Okay, so we are definitely in soapland, are we? Listen, I thought it was sci-fi, but there you go. Davies has also previously spoken about the show's LGBTQ plus representation and the importance of disability representation and further diversity, which are elements children and young people need to see. Now, what do you think about that? Here's what I think about that. It's every day in life and it's all around us. So they see it anyway. So it's not about pushing an agenda with a message, just do good storytelling. Children aren't immune to it in the outside world. There are people with disabilities everywhere. There are people from LGBTQ plus community all over the place. But to them, they don't need to question it. They don't need to think about it. It's just there. They just live their lives as children and get on with their lives as children. And when they watch TV, they want entertainment. And yes, to a degree, entertainment has to be challenging in some respects, but it has to be just over the heads and in that attainable reach. Some of this stuff that you're trying to push on to message wise isn't always attainable. And you're specifically looking for LGBTQ plus representation within the Doctor, the character himself. Well, I hate to remind you of this, but the Doctor, throughout all of the series up until very recently, has always been asexual. Have the Doctor represent asexuals. You can do LGBT representation with the other characters that come in. I mean, remember Bill? I mean, I don't know if you got the memo, but Bill was gay. She is a lesbian. I don't know if you got that memo though, but she was there. She was represented. I think the people are most mad about doing that with the Doctor. And before you say, well, the Doctor loved Rose, here's the thing about that is the fact that the Doctor could never, ever say it. He never said it as a Time Lord. And even when the Meta Crisis whispers into Rose's ear, you are left to think that is what he says, but you never hear it because why? He's a Time Lord. He regenerates. He gets older. He sees the world. She will grow old and she will die. And yes, I know we had River Song as well. I believe it was Jonathan Nathan Turner who said no hanky panky in the TARDIS. And they have been really defensive of the ratings this entire series, perhaps more defensive than what I have ever seen. And it started out with ridiculous stuff and it just ended with, well, that's not the full story. And, here we go. So just some examples. Of course, it's all linked below. Of course, the 2.6 and 2.4 million overnight ratings for Space Babies and Devil's Cord will end up being a fraction of the total audience, considering the episodes were first released on BBC iPlayer a full 19 hours previously and will have a home on the iPlayer Hooniverse, hopefully for forevermore. It was inevitable that fewer people than usual would be watching when the show aired that evening on BBC One. Now, the thing is about that, if it was good enough and people really wanted to watch, they would either stayed up to watch it or they would have watched it earlier on in the day and then they would have watched it again in the evening. There are plenty of other reasons for those ratings too. Some have said the good weather meant people weren't inside watching Doctor Who live. Some have blamed the month of May for being TV's dead spot. There are hundreds of reasons the ratings have ended up as they are. Some are more impactful than others. Yes, because people didn't like it for the most part. But that doesn't mean these ratings don't matter. For one thing, it's pretty incredible that they weren't the lowest ever. These two episodes have been available for almost 19 hours already, and people still tuned in live, proving that even in the streaming age, demand is still there for event TV. But knowing that with the episodes already available and spoilers galore out there, more than 2 million people are still sitting down on a Saturday night to watch Doctor Who Does Matter. I would say it's a very, very good sign. So that was the first two episodes, and you can see they were defending it left, right, and center. Now, I do happen to agree that putting it on at midnight could actually have impacted the ratings. However, it was also a very big mistake because this is a predominantly a TV show that belongs to the BBC. Disney putting their money in does not mean that Disney should be favored first. Boom had an overnight audience of 2.4 million on BBC One in the UK, according to Barb. Of course, that figure isn't the full story, as it does not include those who watched the BBC iPlayer in the hours leading up to the episode on BBC One. On the same night, Britain's Got Talent had an overnight of 4.10 million, with the 1% club receiving 3.58 million. Doctor Who was the most watched programme of the day for the BBC. It's the most watched programme of the day, but it still lost out. Couldn't even defend it. The overnight scores were expected to be weaker this season, with episodes dropping at first at midnight on BBC iPlayer and some fans racing to watch early in order to avoid spoilers. According to figures from Barb, the episode was watched during its BBC One transmission, 2.62 million viewers, up on the current most watched episode. The season premiere of Space Babies is talking about 73 yards. That episode was watched by 2.6 million live, while 2.4 watched The Devil's Cord and only 2.04 watched Boom. Of course, it should be noted that all of these figures are only representative of the BBC overnight audience. And then, as you've seen in my past other videos, in the end, all they said was, of course, that's not the true story. That's not the full story. And the reason why they were saying that was because they realized it was ridiculous that they were defending them in this way, because they were just getting laughed at and criticized for it. Now, I was thinking, what could have really caused all of these ratings to drop off the charts, in addition to people not actually liking the plot holy season of the century and your popular dress-up Ken doll for Russell T Davies? And this is Shruti talking to Variety. Okay, so we've heard it before, but I will read it again. Do you know what? It makes perfect sense to me. I feel like anyone that has a problem with someone who's not a straight white man playing this character, you're not really truly a fan of the show. You've not been watching. But what have they been watching then? God, makes me mad, that does. Because the show is about regeneration and the Doctor is an alien, why would they choose to be this sort of person? So telling fans who are also paying consumers, customers of the BBC, they fund the TV show that you're working for, that they're not true fans of the show because they have a problem with somebody who is not a straight white man playing the character. If they don't like you, then they don't like you. Then you'll just have to accept it and move on and just do the best that you can in a job that many actors would actually love to have. Be thankful for it. My favorite Doctor, Colin Baker, never thought that he was ever going to play the Doctor. So when he was offered the role of Commander Maxwell during Peter Davison's era, he took it. And the reason why he took it was because he never thought that he was going to be the Doctor. Now, obviously, he ended up being the Doctor, but he appreciated that. And you hear him talk about it, and he has a great big love for the show. You hear past actors of the show talk about it, and you can hear their love for it. As for what he'd say to the people accusing Doctor Who of going woke, simply because the franchise now has a diverse lead, Gatwa told the trade, "Don't watch, turn off the TV, go touch grass. Please, for God's sake." The memes that followed that, and the thing is, because you say things like that, this ends up on the internet forever. It ends up in publication forever. I can't believe that the BBC did not actually police this and they actually allowed this to go ahead. So don't tell them to do that because they don't like that. And, here's this again. Davies, who is gay and a trailblazer for LGBTQ television, echoes those sentiments. They weren't exactly the straightest men in the past. And he's talking about the past Doctors. You said that to them? Listen, this is an asexual alien who is a little bit flamboyant, a little bit eccentric, depending on what trait this particular actor would like to actually bring forward to the actual job. And it doesn't necessarily chime with queer energy, as it says here on the screen. It's just alien. Aliens behave differently from us. Not that I've ever met an alien, but there you go. We really cannot miss this one from Jinx Monsoon. Variety asked Monsoon how she responded to trolls who reacted to Gatwa being cast as the beloved sci-fi character with a barrage of racist, homophobic backlash, and the fierce queen answered, as you might expect, "Who gives a F what bigots think?" added Monsoon. A more optimistic and idealistic way of looking at this is that popular opinion is not on their side. They are a very loud group, and they're growing louder as they grow smaller. With every way they lash out in this way, the conservative right has decided to take an all-out war against trans people, queer people, and people of color, and claim that's not what they're doing, but that's clearly what they're doing. Now, obviously, that wasn't the comment that I was going to really read, but I took it out just to show you. This is what it was. For every T-phobic, racist, bigoted Doctor Who fan that we lose this season, there are going to be 3 to 5 new fans who are coming in for the representation. So to those fans who are not fans, I say, don't let the door hit you on the way out. So if you don't like it, you're not a real fan. So if you take a look here, look at all of those fans who have switched off. So I'm going to make a prediction. Obviously, there is a second series of Doctor Who that is currently in filming. Disney have held off, as far as we know, about the potential commissioning of a third series. Now, if I were Disney, I would wait and I would make the BBC sweat before giving them a decision. If they decide that they're going to do it, they're going to be coming in with offering less money to fund it. And I also think that they are going to demand more creative control and even potentially try and buy the series and take it all together. Now, that's one theory that I have. The other theory that I have is they pull out and the show just gets cancelled altogether. And my third theory is that they will not have RTD at the helm. They'll put him in another position, perhaps, and they will take up full creative control, have their own appointed writers that they choose, and so that it can go the way that they want with the mix of BBC and Disney funded money. Those, of course, are just predictions. What do you think will happen to the series? Please leave that in the comments below. What do you think of the ratings overall? Please also leave that in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. Like the video if you would like to like the video. Subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.